Conditional statements. What are conditional statements? In life, we make decisions based on circumstances. Think of an everyday decision as mundane as falling asleep. If we are tired, we go to bed. Otherwise, we wake up and start our day. These if-else decisions can be modeled in code by creating conditional statements. A conditional statement checks a specific condition and performs a task based on that condition. In this lesson, we will explore how programs make decisions by evaluating conditions and introduce logic into our code. We will be covering the following concepts: if, else if, and else statements, comparison operators, logical operators, truthy versus falsy values, ternary operators, and switch statement. So if you're ready to learn these concepts, go to the next lesson. Oh, here we go. The if statement. We often perform a task based on a condition. For example, if the weather is nice today, then we will go outside. If the alarm clock rings, then we will shut it off. If we're tired, then we'll go to sleep. In programming, we can also perform a task based on a condition using an if statement. If true, console log, this message will print. Notice in the example above, we have an if statement. The if statement is composed of the if keyword followed by a set of parentheses, which is followed by a code block or code statement indicated by a set of curly braces. Inside the parentheses, a condition is provided that evaluates to true or false. If the condition evaluates to true, the code inside the curly braces runs or executes. If the condition evaluates to false, the block won't execute. Let's make an if statement. Instructions. Using the let keyword, declare a variable named sale. Assign the value true to it. Let sale equal true. And we'll run that. That worked. Let's move on. Now create an if statement. Provide the if statement a condition of sale. Okay. So it was if, open up, sale, and brackets. Inside the code block of the if statement, console.log the string time to buy. Console.log time to buy. And exclamation point. Don't miss any of those. Great. Notice that the code inside the if statement ran, since time to buy was logged to the console. Below the sale variable declaration, but before the if statement, reassign sale to false. Run your code and observe what happens. We'll be changing this behavior in the next exercise. They wanted a reassignment, I'm pretty sure. And that is true. All right, let's move on to the next one. See, nothing printed to the screen. That's the point of this. This is false now instead of true. If-else statements. In the previous exercise, we used an if statement that checked a condition to decide whether or not to run a block of code. In many cases, we'll have code we want to run if our condition evaluates to false. If we wanted to add some default behavior to the if statement, we can add an else statement to run a block of code when the condition evaluates to false. Take a look at the inclusion of an else statement. An else statement must be paired with an if statement, and together they are referred to as an if-else statement. In the example above, the else statement uses the else keyword following the code block of an if statement, has a code block that is wrapped by a set of curly braces. The code inside the else statement code block will execute when the if statement's condition evaluates to false. If-else statements allow us to automate solutions to yes or no questions, also known as binary decisions. Instructions. Add an else statement to the existing if statement. Inside the code block of the else statement, console.log the string time to wait for a sale. So right here, we'll write time to wait for a sale and a period after that. So we have an if-else here, it was set to true first, and then it was set to false. So this will come as if cell, and that's to false. It should go to our else and print this. Let's run it. That's what happened. Let's go over to our next lesson. Comparison operators. When writing conditional statements, sometimes we need to use different types of operators to compare values. These operators are called comparison operators. Here is a list of some handy comparison operators and their syntax. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and that's a less than sign before the equal to, greater than or equal to, is equal to, that's 3 equals, is not equal to, is exclamation point 2 equals. Comparison operators compare the value on the left with the value on the right. For instance, is 10 less than 12? That should evaluate to true. It can be helpful to think of comparison statements as questions. When the answer is yes, the statement evaluates to true. When the answer is no, the statement evaluates to false. The code above would be asking, is 10 less than 12? Yes. So 10 less than 12 evaluates to true. We can also use comparison operators on different data types like strings. Apples triple equals to oranges. That would be false. In the example above, we're using the identity operator, which is triple equals, to check if the string apples is the same as the string oranges. Since the two strings are not the same, the comparison statement evaluates to false. All comparison statements evaluate to either true or false and are made up of two values that will be compared. An operator that separates the values and compares them accordingly. Let's practice using these comparison operators. Using let, create a variable named hunger level and set it equal to 7. Let hunger level equal 7. And we'll run that. Hunger level, oops, I wrote lever. Hunger lever. All right, let's run that. That does work. Write an if-else statement using a comparison operator. The condition should check if hunger level is greater than 7. If so, the conditional statement should log time to eat. Otherwise, it should log we can eat later. After you press run, play around with the condition by tweaking the comparison of hunger level by using different operators, such as the other operators that are available to us. Let's go ahead and make this statement. So this is an if-else statement. So if, and it wants us to compare the condition, so to check hunger level. Hunger level is, I wrote lever again, is greater than 7. The condition is time, well, this isn't the condition, but what happens is time to eat. And then after that, we need to do an else statement, and we can eat later. A lot of exclamation points. And before we run, let's do what it said and console.log each of these. Great, that should work. And it did. We can move on to the next lesson. Logical operators. Working with conditionals means that we will be using booleans, true or false values. In JavaScript, there are operators that work with boolean values known as logical operators. We can use logical operators to add more sophisticated logic to our conditionals. There are 3 logical operators: the AND operator, which are 2 ampersands, the OR operator, which are 2 straight lines down, the NOT operator, otherwise known as the BANG operator, which is the exclamation point. When we use the AND operator, we are checking that 2 things are true. If stoplight triple equals green, and pedestrians triple equals 0. When using the AND operator, both conditions must evaluate to true for the entire condition to evaluate to true and execute. Otherwise, if either condition is false, the AND condition will evaluate to false, and the else block will execute. If we only care about either condition being true, we can use the OR operator. If day is triple equal to Saturday, or day is triple equal to Sunday. When using the OR operator, only one of the conditions must evaluate to true for the overall statement to evaluate to true. In the code example above, if either day triple equals Saturday or day triple equals Sunday evaluates to true, the ifs condition will evaluate to true, and its code block will execute. If the first condition in an OR statement evaluates to true, the second condition won't even be checked. Only if day triple equal to Saturday evaluates to false will day triple equal to Sunday be evaluated. The code in the else statement above will execute only if both comparisons evaluate to false. The NOT operator reverses or negates the value of a boolean. Let excited equal true. Console.log the NOT operator in front of excited. That should print false. Essentially, the NOT operator will either take a true value and pass back false, or take a false value and pass back true. Logical operators are often used in conditional statements to add another layer of logic to our code, instructions. In main.js, there are two variables, mood and tiredness level. Let's create an if-else statement that checks if mood is sleepy and tiredness level is greater than 8. If both conditions evaluate to true, then console.log the string time to sleep. Otherwise, we should console.log not bedtime yet. Let's go through this. We need an if statement. It needs to check mood, and it needs to check tiredness level. Okay, so checks if mood is triple equal to sleepy, and tiredness level, and that was an end, so let's do our double ampersand. Tiredness level is greater than 8. Console, so if this evaluates to true, we need to console.log. It's under case time to sleep, no punctuation. Else, we're going to console.log not bedtime yet. And we can run that. That worked perfectly. Now it says to go ahead and try a few more of these operators and so on, and we'll just do one more just to show how this works. So we see that this is true and this is false. So let's do an OR statement here. So what if we do an OR right here? So we'll have one true and one false. This won't even be evaluated because it already has its true, and it should print time to sleep. Let's run that. It did. Now, let's try this. I'm going to throw that bang operator in there. So this would be mood not equal to sleepy and tiredness level greater than, or tiredness level greater than 8. This should give us the else statement here because the mood is equal to sleepy. And it did. Great, let's move on. Truthy and Falsy. Let's consider how non-Boolean data types like strings or numbers are evaluated when checked inside a condition. Sometimes you'll want to check if a variable exists and you won't necessarily want it to equal a specific value. You'll only check to see if the variable has been assigned a value. Here's an example. Let my variable equal I exist. If my variable, console.log my variable. Else, console.log the variable does not exist. The code block in the if statement will run because my variable has a truthy value. Even though the value of my variable is not explicitly the value true, when used in a Boolean or conditional context, it evaluates to true because it has been assigned a non-falsy value. So which values are falsy or evaluate to false when checked as a condition? The list of falsy values includes 0, empty string, null, which represent when there is no value at all, undefined, which represent when a declared variable lacks a value, nan, or not a number. Here's an example with numbers. The condition evaluates to false because the value of number of apples is 0. Since 0 is a falsy value, the code block in the else statement will run. Instructions. Change the value of word count so that it is truthy. This value should still be a number. After you make this change and run your code, great, you started your work, should log to the console. So we need to change the value of word count so that it's truthy. So word count is 0, which is a falsy value that we saw that right up here. These are your falsy values. I'm just going to make it 1. And let's run that. Change the value of favorite phrase so that it is still a string but falsy. After you make this change and run your code, this string is definitely empty, should log inside the console. That's this one here, and if favorite string. So where's favorite string? So we know that an empty string evaluates to false. Let's run this code. And we're good. We'll move on to the next lesson. Truthy and Falsy assignment. Truthy and Falsy evaluations open a world of shorthand possibilities. Say you have a website and want to take a user's username and make a personalized greeting. Sometimes the user does not have an account, making the username variable falsy. The code below checks if username is defined and assigns a default string if it is not. If you combine your knowledge of logical operators, you can use a shorthand for the code above. In a Boolean condition, JavaScript assigns the truthy value to a variable if you use the OR operator in your assignment. Let default name equal username or stranger. So if there's no username, stranger would be default name's value. So if username is falsy, default name will be stranger, otherwise it'll be username. Because OR statements check the left-hand condition first, the variable default name will be assigned the actual value of username if is truthy. That seems like a typo. Will be assigned the actual value of username if username is truthy, and it will be assigned the value of stranger if username is falsy. The concept is also referred to as short-circuit evaluation. Let's use short-circuit evaluation to assign a value to writing utensil. Do not edit tool yet. We'll return to tool in the next step. All right, so writing utensil. Assign to writing utensil the value of tool, and if tool is falsy, assign the default value of pen. So writing utensil equals tool or pen, and let's run that. The pen is mightier than the sword. That worked. Let's go to the next one. Notice that the text, the pen is mightier than the sword, logged to the console, which means the value of writing utensil is pen. What if we reassign the value of tool to marker? Let's see what happens to the value of writing utensil. Okay, we need to make this marker all lowercase and just run that. The marker is mightier than the sword. Let's move on. Ternary operator. In the spirit of using shorthand syntax, we can use a ternary operator to simplify an if-else statement. Take a look at the if-else statement example. Let nighttime equal true, and they show us a normal if statement. If nighttime, console log something, and else, console log something else. We can use a ternary operator to perform the same functionality. In the example above, the condition is nighttime is provided before the question mark. Two expressions follow the question mark, and they are separated by a colon. If the condition evaluates to true, the first expression executes. If the condition evaluates to false, the second expression executes. Like if-else statements, ternary operators can be used for conditions which evaluate to true or false. Instructions. Refactor or edit the first if-else block to use a ternary operator. So refactor and edit mean the same thing. So this is the if-else. So what we'd want to say is locked question mark. So is locked true or false? The first thing will be the console. Actually, let's paste this stuff. The first thing will be this console log and the colon, and then the second console log. This is where the else goes. Let's see if we can make this a little prettier. Okay, so this is reading is locked question mark, and that means true or false. If it's locked, do this one. If not, do this one. So this is our or operator at this point. Cool, let's get rid of this and run it. That worked. Refactor the second if-else block to use a ternary operator. Okay, this as well. So we have let is correct true. So we'll do is correct question mark, and then the first console.log. Well, let's go to the next line. We'll do the colon for or, and then we'll do another console.log, which is right here, saying incorrect. And run that. Oh, nope, don't run that yet. Get rid of the statement first. Now run that. Refactor the third if-else block to use a ternary operator. Okay. If favorite phrase triple equal to love that. Okay, so this is different. This is not just true false inside of the ternary operator. We need to see that favorite phrase is exactly love that with an exclamation point after it. So we'll say favorite phrase triple equal to, and then we'll write love, make sure it's capital love, capital that, and an exclamation point. And then after that comes your question mark. You know what? Let's do this on different lines. We'll say question mark, and then we'll do the first part. I love that. And then the next line, we'll do the or, and we'll do the second one. I don't love that. Get rid of this. And run. All right, we've made it through that one. Let's go to the next one. Else-if statements. We can add more conditions to our if-else with an else-if statement. The else-if statement allows for more than two possible outcomes. You can add as many else-if statements as you'd like to make more complex conditionals. The else-if statement always comes after the if statement and before the else statement. The else-if statement also takes a condition. Let's take a look at its syntax. So we'll have an if statement, and that will have some sort of condition in it. The else-if will always have a condition, and the else will not. The else-if statements allow you to have multiple possible outcomes. If, else-if, else statements are read from top to bottom. So the first condition that evaluates to true from the top to the bottom is the block that gets executed. In the example above, let me get that in the picture. Since stoplight triple equals red evaluates to false and stoplight triple equals yellow evaluates to true, the code inside the first else-if statement is executed. The rest of the conditions are not evaluated. If none of the conditions evaluated to true, then the code in the else statement would have executed. Instructions. Let's create a program that keeps track of the way the environment changes with the seasons. Run a conditional statement that will make this happen. In main.js, there is already an if-else statement in place. Let's add an else-if statement that checks if season is equal to winter. Okay, so let's get started on that part of it. So here's our if statement. It ends right here. So in front of our else statement, we'll move that down. We'll write else if. We'll open up some parentheses, and in there we're going to write season and triple equal winter. We'll open up our brackets and read a little more. Inside the code block of the else if statement, add a console.log that prints the string, it's winter, everything is covered in snow. Okay, so console.log, and I'm going to copy this in. You can see it has an escape character in it. So an escape character, that's this one right here, that stops it from thinking that this is a quote. Oh, that this here is a quote. So instead of closing the quote here and closing the string, it keeps going. So we did that, let's run it. Invalid season, and that's because it is summer, it's not spring or winter. Great. Add another else if statement that checks if season is equal to fall. Okay, let's do it right after this one. Else if season triple equal fall. Inside the code block of the else if statement you just created, add a console.log that prints the string, it's fall, leaves are falling. All right, well, console.log. And inside there, I'm going to paste this. Another escape character in here. Run. Still invalid season because it's still summer. Add a final else if statement that checks if season is equal to summer. Okay, one more. Else if season summer. Console.log, let's see what they want us to say then. Inside the code block of the else if statement you just created, add a console.log that prints the string, it's sunny and warm because it's summer. 2 escape characters in this one. Let's run that. It's sunny and warm because it's summer. Let's go to the next. The switch keyword. Else if statements are a great tool if we need to check multiple conditions. In programming, we often find ourselves needing to check multiple values and handling each of them differently. For example, let grocery item equal papaya, and then if grocery item triple equals tomato, console log something, just like we did in the last lesson. In the code above, we have a series of conditions checking for a value that matches a grocery item variable. Our code works fine, but imagine if we needed to check 100 different values. Having to write that many else if statements sounds like a pain. It does. A switch statement provides an alternative syntax that is easier to read and write. A switch statement looks like this. Let grocery item equal papaya and switch over grocery item, with the cases being different types of foods here. Okay, let's take a look. The switch keyword initiates the statement and is followed by parentheses with something inside of it, which contains the value that each case will compare. In the example, the value or expression of the switch statement is grocery item. Inside the block, there are multiple cases. The case keyword checks if the expression matches the specified value that comes after it. The value following the first case is tomato. If the value of grocery item equal tomato, that case's console.log would run. The value of grocery item is papaya, so the third case runs. Papayas are 129, is logged to the console. The break keyword tells the computer to exit the block and not execute any more code or check any other cases inside the code block. Note, without break keywords, the first matching case will run, but so will every subsequent case regardless of whether or not it matches, including the default. This behavior is different from if-else, conditional statements that execute only one block of code. At the end of each switch statement, there is a default statement. If none of the cases are true, then the code in the default statement will run. Instructions. Let's write a switch statement to decide what medal to award an athlete. We have athlete position up here, so athlete final position is already defined at the top of main.js. So start writing a switch statement with the athlete final position as the expression. Okay, so which, and then let me copy this. Athlete final position, and then they had cases, correct? Yep, cool. I don't think we should write the cases yet. Let's see what happens. That was right, okay. Inside the switch statement, add 3 cases. The first case checks for the value first place. So we'll say case first place, and then in there, we were going to console.log the string you get the gold medal. And that is capital U, get the gold medal, and exclamation point. Great, and let's look at the context here. We see we're going to have to wrap we just need to put that break in there as well. Let's use our break. Okay, we got our first one done. In the second case, it'll check for second place. So let's take this guy. Second place. And I imagine it's silver medal. It is. You get the silver medal, perfect. And we're going to do third place. So after the break, let's do another one. Third place, is it bronze medal? Let's see. Yes, perfect. And that's all 3. We need to also, let's not finish this. If we get ahead of them, they won't count it. So let's run this. You get the gold medal. We still need to do that default case. So now add a default statement at the end of the switch that uses console.log to print no medal awarded. If athlete position does not equal any value of our cases, then the string no medal awarded is logged to the console. Remember to add the break keyword at the end of the default case. So default console.log no medal awarded, and then after that we're going to write break. Let's see if we got it. Nope, I didn't put the period after no medal awarded. Got it. All right, next lesson is the review. So let's read through the review. Way to go. Here are some of the major concepts for conditionals. An if statement checks a conditional and will execute a task if that conditional evaluates to true. If-else statements make binary decisions and execute different code blocks based on a provided condition. We can add more conditions using else-if statements. Comparison operators, including all the comparison operators, can compare 2 values. The logical AND operator, $&, checks if both provided expressions are truthy. The logical OR operator checks if either provided expression is truthy. The BANG operator, exclamation point, switches the truthiness and falsiness of a value. The ternary operator is shorthand to simplify concise if-else statements. A switch statement can be used to simplify the process of writing multiple else-if statements. The break keyword stops the remaining cases from being checked and executed in a switch statement. Great job. All right, everything went well there. Let's go to the next lesson.